You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is Friday morning's edition. Right, everything's looking good. I just saw my cassette blink at me up here. Anyway, give me a call at 850-763-0555 if you have a question or want to talk. But anyway, I've got Hansson Hindenburg calling all the way from Baytown Tires. And every week we talk about tires. We talk about safety. We talk about keeping your car safe on the road. Hansson, what has been the worst safety thing that you've seen a customer bring a car in this week with? Ours has been rotors that we had a car come in. The rotors were so thin that the piston had popped out.
We see that, we see that often.
Ah.
Being in a state where we don't have state inspections, and people like to wait until the very last moment.
It does seem to be that way. I mean, wait till this one was so bad that the only reason it got in here because it got towed in because the brakes completely went out on it, and they avoided a wreck and ended up in a ditch. And I've never seen that bad.
Well, doing tires, I see it every day. Unfortunately, is people that have tires that are really not safe to be on the road.
Yeah.
And I always understand that budget-wise, sometimes it's not in the budget to get a new tire or do a proper repair. But it really sometimes makes me quiver a little bit, wondering, these guys out on the road, just like you said, the brakes were out. If they would have hit somebody and somebody would have gotten hurt or killed.
That's right. And it's personal responsibility. We talk about that as being libertarians. We are not trying to make laws for everybody, tell people what not to do, but we are responsible for our actions. If we do things that cause an accident or cause death or injury or whatever, we should be responsible for it. And driving a car that has unsafe tires, like I said, we told the customer, I said, sir, here's what we know. You got a tire that's completely separated. It's about ready to throw a tread. You've got 3 good tires, 1 bad tire. You have no brakes on this car. If I work on this car, I have to fix the brakes right. I can't patch them up. I can't just throw pads on it and throw your rotor, and I got to change the calipers and all this. And if either I fix it right or you tow the car out of here. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, way the law reads, if I let you leave and this car is dangerous and you cause an accident driving it away from here, I could be held liable in a court of law because I'm supposed to stop you from driving it. If you brought the car here to me, I'm not supposed to allow you to drive it out of here, or I should tow it to your house or to another repair shop because this car is dangerous.
And we see that on repairs on tires as well. Sometimes we go, well, can't you just plug it and I'll buy a new tire in a couple of weeks? And unfortunately, I have to go, no. I mean, in good conscience, I can't repair this tire because if you have a blowout and you wreck, and, like you said, in a litigious society like today, that, I could be held responsible for attempting to fix this tire or patch it or whatever you like.
Well, you're right. Maybe 15 years ago, I got called in as an expert witness. Pat Fouché, the late Pat Fouché, who's a lawyer here, called me in town to go to Mariana. A repair shop had done brakes on a vehicle. And when it came to a railroad track, he went to hit the brakes, and the brakes failed, and they hit the side of the train, and the person got killed. Well, the first thing they did was they looked in the glove box and said, well, who worked on the car last? So they found it where XYZ repair shop had worked on it last, did a brake job on it. The drums were so chewed up, they just put shoes on there, adjusted them out where they touched, and then after 2 weeks, the shoes literally fell off, inside the drums, and that's what caused the accident. They were only stopping on the front brakes, and of course, you know what happens when that happens. You don't stop very well. And the car ran into a train, and that was it. And they ended up suing and winning because the shop was found negligent by not performing the job properly. And that's one of those things we tell people about. We in our business, we have to do the job properly or don't do it, because that's what's going to happen. If we cause an accident or someone gets injured or body damage, or property damage, it can be thrown back on us. And
and it's just not the right thing to do. Even forget all the legal mumbo jumbo about it. We want you as our customer to be safe.
Absolutely.
And come back again. So we don't want you to be in an accident.
Well, we had one different. I had one right here. Right? This is you can't see it, but this is a rotor that came off of a car. and it's supposed to have, you got one, two sides of it, and you got the fins in the middle. Well, this car just has one side, and the fins are gone. It's all the way down. This is what I was talking about. It's that bad, and the customer said it just started making noise a couple of days ago. And I kind of looked at him and go, man, this thing had been making noise for months. There's just no way, because both sides were just about as bad. But it's amazing how people don't pay attention, and they really need to pay attention to sounds, noises, vibrations. Matter of fact, it was so bad that the hubcap had rusted from all the metal shavings for so long. It had been, being put on the hubcap. They had rusted the hubcap, where it was a nice rusty color compared to the other three hubcaps because of metal shavings. I'm just like, how do people drive cars like that safely? And I guess we do what we have to do to get by. But this car came all the way from Orlando, we found out. And it was trying to head back to Orlando, and it ended up leaving, but it left a lot safer than it came here.
And speaking of brakes, we do a lot of brake lines from cars that are up north.
Yes.
And they're rusted, and the person goes, well, just patch it up right there, and we go like, no, you need to replace the entire line. If I patch it right here, the likelihood of it leaking somewhere down the line is pretty good. And then if you get into a situation you really need to stop and the line breaks, then you have a big issue. That's
exactly right. And we are not allowed to put compression fittings on brake lines. They have to be screwed together, flared fittings. You cannot put compression fittings. And I don't, how many times you see compression fittings come in from up north on brake lines? And I just kind of look at them. You drive this car like that? Oh yeah, they do it all the time. If they're going, man, that is so dangerous. You're putting 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of pressure on a brake line, and you're holding it together with a compression fitting. It just doesn't work very well. It will slip.
And that's what people don't realize. Some of these repairs are just really meant temporary, if anything at all.
Yeah.
And like you said, especially on brake lines, they need to be flared and done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you're taking your life in your hand every time you step on that pedal.
And somebody else's possibly at the same time. But speaking of temporary battery cable ends, you've heard me talk about it for years and years and years. And for years, I used to think that was a proper repair procedure. Just cut the end of the battery cable off, skin it back, stick a cable on there, and clamp it down. And I didn't think much about it. But over the years, Mark Sarlo, automotive engineer, and a few other people, engineers, have said we create voltage drops wherever we put those connections together. We actually drop voltage being supplied to our electrical components, and they're not for permanent use. And they actually said, look on the bottom of the card, it says for temporary use only. And that's just things that you and I don't know about you anymore, but I know I used to think that that was a permanent fix, putting those temporary cables on, but they're not.
Well, you took the words right out of my head. Yeah. Voltage drop is important. We looked at a car about a week ago that, the electric system was doing funky stuff, and it really just wound up being the battery end.
Yeah.
And it affects the way that the computers are, and you have 4 or 5 different computers, and down the line, that voltage drops makes the body control module act funky. And I hate to say it, in some of these cars, the correct battery cable, because you got 5 different cables coming off it, are going to all different components, is a couple of $100, and it's snaked through the entire engine compartment in a funky way, and it takes a couple of hours to put it on. But we did that, and all these other symptoms went away.
It's amazing. And I talk about voltage drops all the time, and it really, when I was in school back in the 70s, they didn't teach voltage drops. They taught us Ohm's law, and it kind of went in one ear and out the other, because I didn't like to do math and all that. That's why I became a mechanic. And the next thing I know is I went to class maybe 15, 20 years ago, and one of the guys at the CarQuest class said, hey, voltage drop is excessive resistance. How many times do you put a starter on, 3 or 4 starters, and you still have the same problem? And all of us raised our hand. He said, why don't you replace that starter with a headlight and test it and see, put one end to the positive lead and one end to the block and give it a ground, and turn the starter and see what happens. And he said, you'll be surprised if you do that. You may find that you have a voltage drop. You're not getting enough voltage down there to even light up the headlight. And I think that is what made the light, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, came on in my brain, is to replace that electrical component that's acting up with a headlight to make sure I got a good ground and proper voltage to fix a problem or diagnose.
And, a lot of times we see that people putting pigtails on going to different components, blower motors,
right.
Blower resistors, even alternators.
Oh.
And because the plug has burned up, and the resistance, that pigtail has to be put on there neatly with shrink wrap and all that kind of stuff to make sure that over time it doesn't become corroded, and then you have, like you said, a larger resistance, which makes other components act funky again.
Absolutely. We see that, I think, Gustav Kirchhoff had about the voltage drop law for every connection. It had something to do about the sum of the connections added up to the amount of the voltage drop. But the biggest thing that I realized, the more connections you have on a circuit, the more voltage drop you have. Approximately 0.2 of a volt per connection is where they have it figured out. And they don't want to see more than, on a car, no more than 1 volt total drop between circuits. And we see this quite often between fuel pumps. I see customers coming in, this is my 4th fuel pump on. And I look at them, I said, 4th fuel pump in how long? In 3 years. I look at them and go, you have a voltage drop problem. And I get this, what? And I go, you either have a bad ground or you're not getting 12 volts. And I guess just about every one of them, we put the headlight to it, we find out that the headlight will work, but it's very dim. Or not as bright as it should be, and in most cases we find out the ground path is faulty.
Well, and that's a whole other story. Or the grounds, body grounds all the time. We work on older cars, and the connection has corroded, or even technical service bulletins tell us, hey, you need to look for this particular ground, because over time it wiggles loose and it's just not making a good connection to the body.
How many times have you and I fixed ABS brakes from the ground pillar on General Motors that always goes bad, it seems. I don't know how many cars over the years I've fixed and you fixed just by repairing a ground or cleaning a ground. That's things we see quite often, and that's something that a lot of people overlook, and a lot of shops do, that can be avoided if they'll put a headlight. Just one of those halogen headlights. Go to the salvage yard and make you one. And you'll be surprised how much diagnostics. We've repaired transmissions that way. We've repaired brakes that way. We repaired alternating and charging systems, starter systems, AC systems, everything by using a headlight. Because my guys, including myself, we're a little math challenged using a digital volt ohm meter, going, okay, we crank it, we got a half volt drop there. Well, for grins and giggles, if we put it on there and put a headlight, is the light nice and bright? Yeah, it is. Okay, good, it's fine. Leave it alone. If not, go from there.
Well, and some shops don't want to do it because it is labor intensive. Yeah. It takes time to check, the grounds and to make sure that everything is secure, and that you have to do some due diligence and some real, research following the repair charts to make sure that everything is neat and tidy.
That's right, because the charts that we get from the flow charts, they're designed for newer cars under 36,000 miles. The cars that you and I get normally have 100,000+ miles on them. They're out of warranty, and they've had every Tom, Dick, and Harry putting butt connectors on the system all throughout. We see this all the time. Hansson, thank you so much for being on there. If people want to talk to you or find out more about what you can do for them, they can call you at 873-8900.
I'll be here all day.
Sounds good. Baytown Tires, talk to Hansson Hindenburg at Baytown, or whoever answers the phone. They'll be more than happy to take care of you. Talk to you later.
Have a great week.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guarantee. Beep, 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 beep.